la perche, c'est juste dans le focus là. Je peux bouger un peu. Il doit la mettre plus bas, plus haut, pardon, je peux. Et ça va comme ça, non? Ouais? Très bien. More to the right. Okay. someone is coming for that.
digamos que aici, da.
I'm looking forward to today's discussions, and I think we have the chance, historical chance, Moldova. This is in our hands. We can take it, but we can waste it. The position of my country is very strong. You know that we were supporters from the first day. And I think Ukrainian people, Moldovan people deserve, because they put so much effort to implement the recommendations of European Commission, they deserve positive outcome. Whether we will be able to take this positive outcome and to take the decisions, we will see today. But my point is, if we will spoil or if we will abuse the unanimity principle, there will be more and more voices asking why we still take the decisions on the consensus basis. So for my country, which is benefiting from the unanimity principle, because this is a small-sized country, like Hungary, for example, it's very important to keep this principle. But we should not abuse this principle and to use this very correctly and very fairly. We'll see. Yes, other countries waiting too. My friends from Georgia really did a lot in order to implement reforms too. Yes, there are always some issues which could be discussed in the future, but right now we have the political situation where we can take the decisions. And decisions not only regarding Ukraine, Moldova, but Georgia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. For me it's very simple question and answer. My country benefited a lot from the membership in the European Union. Economy skyrocketing, innovations, green investments and so on. GDP per capita grew from 42% in 2003 to 90% right now of European Union average. So my question is, why the people outside of European Union should not deserve the same? To deserve normal life, to deserve prosperity, rule of law and so on, and etc. On 50 billion euros, I hope very much that we will find a formula because 50 billion euros is the matter of today. We should not postpone this decision because Ukraine is not fighting tomorrow. Ukraine is fighting right now. And of course it has enormous implications on the economy. So we need financial flows in order to preserve the country. And I hope that we will find this strong political will, maybe putting aside other issues, which are also important, but putting aside them to find what is really the issue number one. Well, I don't want to talk about Mr. Orban. I already told what they wanted. And I hope very much that during our discussions, we will find the arguments. But if some people are not listening to the arguments, then the situation becomes very complicated. Well, those are different tracks, please. Those are different tracks, and I don't treat it as exchange, as a bazaar. Those are different tracks, and I think that we should not, let's say, sell the principle for money. It's absolutely inappropriate for European Union as a community. Okay, time is more, maybe there is some coincidence, but I treat those two issues as separate. And the most important issue is, if we are talking about the decision, not the implementation of reforms in Hungary, but implementation of reforms in Ukraine, Moldova, and Georgia. Those are critical factors in order to decide. Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe good morning. We will have a very important council meeting, and I'm ready to negotiate. I have packed many shirts, and it takes as long as it is needed. I have one main point. It is our security and our existence as a credible union. We need strong decisions here. We have to show our unity. On Ukraine, situation is difficult, and that's why we need 3 decisions. First, on EPF, we need multi-annual decision on that. They need fast military assistance. Secondly, we need solution on MMF, 50 billion tool to help Ukraine. And thirdly, we need decision on enlargement. We need clear signal to the all states who want to be the member of the Union that we are ready to negotiate, and we have to decide to start negotiations. And finally, I have to say that Russia's threat is real. That's why we have to boost our defense industry. For example, in Finland, we have decided to doubling our own ammunition. And we have helped Ukraine more than 2 billion euros. And we have to do all more as a union, as a member states. Thank you. So we cannot accept any blackmailing. We have to find decision together. I think that the Commission have to do their work and decide very carefully what they are doing. But we cannot do any compromise on the rule of law. we are supporting. Yes. What we decide or what we does not decide is clear signal to Moscow, to Kiev, to Washington, to Beijing. And that's why we have to decide that we support Ukraine. Thank you.
Tästä tulee erittäin tärkeä historiallinen kokous. Se, mitä me päätetään tai mitä me ei päätetä, se on selkeä viesti Kiovaan, Moskovaan, Washingtoniin, Pekingiin. Mutta minulla on täällä vain yksi tavoite, ja Suomella. Se on se, että me tehdään vahvoja päätöksiä, jolla me tuetaan Ukrainaa, ja se koostuu 3 elementistä. Ensinnäkin
for a long day today. So first of all, we have to keep supporting Ukraine. Estonia made last week a pledge to support Ukraine militarily for at least 4 coming years with 0.25% of our GDP. Plus, short-term military aid. I think this is very important that we do this so that Ukraine can win this war. And of course, today we have several discussions related to this. One is the financial support, the 50 billion for Ukraine. So we have to reach an agreement there. And then the other part is the enlargement issue. How are the negotiations open for Ukraine and Moldova? And we are going to have long discussions there. I just had a talk with Viktor Orban, and he's next, so I will be short. I promised him, so you can ask him questions. But he said that he doesn't see an agreement right now on this. He does not. So we have tried, but we will try again. So. Try to convince, try to negotiate, and so not ready to give up yet. Well, we have the discussions. I mean, different arguments, different proposals, also compromises. I will not run ahead of the negotiations that we have upcoming. So we're going to have different bilaterals and also discussion around the table. We definitely have to reach some kind of agreement, and we don't have the time to really procrastinate or look at, push it to the future. But it's definitely a bad signal. I hope that we can get agreement at least on some of the elements that are on the line. And as Commission has come up with the report that is merit-based, of course it's a political decision on our side, but we should stick to the report. Ukraine has fulfilled the criteria to open the accession talks, and the accession talks take several years. We know from our own history. Not optimistic, no.
If the US were therefore more likely scenario that we'll see the 26 coming together rather than 27 the 50 billion?
Right now, let's focus on the plan A because we are still, before the negotiations right now. If we don't reach an agreement, then we can think about what other options are there. But we are discussing all the countries separately and together as well. This is all the proposals that are on the table. So we need to reach. This is on the list, but I mean, the biggest problem is around Ukraine and Moldova, so let's see how that goes. But I really promised Victor that I'll be short, so
tagságról beszélünk, akkor a magyar álláspont azt mondja, hogy ez egy érdemalapú, szofisztikált jogi eljárás, vannak feltételei, ezek nem teljesültek, nincs abban a helyzetben a tanács, hogy döntsön, jöjjünk vissza később, amikor ez már a feltételek azok teljesülnek. Ebből nem fogunk elmozdulni, akármi is az ajánlat.
Hatalmas a nyomásgyakorlás, itt már maratoni hosszúságú uniós csúcsról beszélnek. Mi az a mozgástér, ameddig kompromisszum tekintetében esetleg elmennek, és vannak-e szövetségesek?
Hát a magyar genetikailag nem érzékeli a nyomást, tehát az bennünket olyan nagyon nem befolyásol, nekünk álláspontunk van, azt fogjuk képviselni. Szövetségesek. Mindig vannak. Persze, de most nem Ukrajnáról van szó, hanem az Európai Unió bővítéséről. Most megyek még oda. Most kezdődik. Georgia is okay, it's done.
Will you support 50 billion for Ukraine today?
The money for Ukraine in short term is already in the budget. If we would like to give longer term and bigger money, we have to manage outside the budget, and we support it.
Will you support that doesn't mean it's done for Georgia?
Everybody loves you.
Will you support enlargement? Will you support enlargement?
Enlargement is not a theoretical issue. Enlargement is a merit-based, legally detailed process, which has preconditions. We have set up 7 preconditions, and even by the evaluation of the Commission, 3 out of the 7 is not fulfilled. So there is no reason to negotiate membership of Ukraine now, even not to negotiate.
Conditions on which you will agree and there will be consensus.
The preconditions were set up not by Hungary. Preconditions were set up by the Commission. 7 points, which is public,
and out of
no. Precondition is precondition. Out of 7, 3 was not fulfilled. In my estimation, even more. But even 3 is enough to say that, guys, if you haven't fulfilled the preconditions, there is no chance to start to negotiate.
Yes. Is it possible?
Hungary received 10 billion euros from the European Commission yesterday. From what you're saying, that amount is not enough to convince you today to say 50 billion to Ukraine.
The first is to get is better late than never. Second, why we are here is not to make business. It's not about bargain, it's not about deal. We represent approaches and principles. So to give money to Ukraine is easy to do because in short term the money for Ukraine is already in the budget. So there is no any extra decision to give it in short term. In long term and the bigger sum of money, my position is that we should give it outside. But we are not under the pressure of the time because the bridging solution is already in the budget. So and plus Hungary does not connect any Hungarian issue to any Ukrainian or other issue. It's not our style.
Mr. Orban, the 50 billion are supposed to start next year, so that's in the short term until 2027.
Next year, you mean?
Yes.
But that will be a European election. Why we are not behaving democratically to wait the new leadership, you know?
Mr. Orban, Council agree on the proposal of Ukraine?
Which one?
Both proposals. My country.
So the first is membership, yeah? Okay. We set up 7 preconditions, and in the evaluation of the Commission, 3 out of the 7 is not fulfilled. So therefore, there is no reason to discuss anything, because preconditions were not met. So we have to come back later on, revert to that issue again when it is fulfilled by the Ukrainians. Enlargement of Europe, which is a legal procedure, which merit-based.
Why are you against this? Why are you against the accession of Ukraine?
No, we insist on the procedure we have to follow always, previously as well. Preconditions, when the candidate fulfilled it, let's start to negotiate a membership. But it was not fulfilled even by the evaluation of the Commission, so we are not in a position to start to negotiate.
But the Commission says they will be ready by March.
God morgon på er.
Hi, I kick off.
Just on the question of Viktor Orban and the money for Hungary, I mean, Ireland being a net contributor to the EU, do you agree that 10 billion should have been granted to Hungary without any real compliance with EU law?
Yes, so I actually discussed this morning with President von der Leyen and also with Commissioner Hahn, and the rules are the rules. Hungary is entitled to certain monies, and they're linked to certain rules, and if they fulfil the criteria, the money flows. And we're a country that always talks to other countries about the importance of upholding the rule of law, and in this case it's the European Union that had to obey its own rules. The timing is not good because, of course, the perception is that this is some sort of incentive to Hungary to support certain positions, an incentive that mightn't even work, but that's actually not the case. The rules are the rules. Hungary fulfilled the criteria required to unlock this aspect of the 30 billion, and that's why it's been allocated.
But Hungary still has the potential to veto the beginning of accession talks to Ukraine. How damaging would that be?
Well, I've been attending European Council meetings for 6 or 7 years now. This is probably one of the most important ones that I've attended, precisely because of the big decisions we have to make in relation to Ukraine. A financial decision and also a decision on whether to begin negotiations. And we have to say yes to at least one of those two, and ideally both of those two, because Ukraine is in peril. Ukraine will not stand without support and ongoing support from both the European Union and the US, the two towers of freedom and democracy in the world. And if Ukraine doesn't have support from the EU and the US, well, then Putin will win, and all of the consequences that flow for the world after that. So that's why this meeting is so important. We must come away here with the financial package for Ukraine that is sustainable, that gives them the assurance that they will be funded for the next few years if needs be, and sends that very clear message to the Kremlin as well. And then also I'll be very strongly supporting the opening of negotiations. It might take many years for Ukraine to join the European Union, but we should begin negotiations next year. And I know from speaking to President Zelensky that matters on the front line. Soldiers who've been fighting on the front line for Europe, for Ukraine, this will really count in terms of their morale. So this is a really important meeting. Well, take Shona first, that's okay. Well, we'll be pushing for strong wording on Gaza coming out of the summit. Certainly stronger wording than was in place in October. I think the position of European countries has been evolving. At the UN the other day, Ireland was in the majority of EU countries, 17 voting for a ceasefire, only 2 voting against. So I think the centre of gravity within the European Union is moving closer to the position that Ireland has taken for some time, but still needs to move further, in my view. What I'll be saying to European leaders here is that I think the European Union has lost credibility because of our inability to take a stronger and more united position on Israel and Palestine. We've lost credibility with the global south, which actually is most of the world, because what is perceived to be double standards, and there's some truth in that, quite frankly. And secondly, I think there's a major issue with young people and credibility that the European Union has among young people. We know how strongly young people feel about climate, and they also feel really strongly about the issue of Israel-Palestine. The majority of voters under 40 in the US, as well as the EU, now having more sympathy with Palestinians than with Israelis. That's a significant change, and European leaders need to be wise to that. And that's why I think we need to have strong wording that condemns terrorism perpetrated by Hamas, but also calls for humanitarian ceasefire and calls for justice for Palestinian people, which is a two-state solution which the European Union should be pushing and demanding, not just calling for.
It's a great pleasure for me to be here for my first European Council. I think it will be a very tough one. I'm used to international meetings due to my previous time as Minister of Finance and Minister of Justice. And I'm leading now a government that is clearly pro-European. It is pro-European because we believe that our stability, our security, our prosperity depends on a strong European Union. And therefore the meeting that we had last night with the Western Balkans, the meeting that we will have today on the opening of accession talks with several countries, in particular with Ukraine, have to be seen in the same bigger picture. That is to say that without a strong European Union based on the same values, based on the same objectives, we will not be able to ensure peace and stability on this continent. When I was listening last night to the positions of the European Union and of the Balkans, the Western Balkans, it reminded me of my time when we did the enlargement of the European Union in 2004. It had the same objective, making sure that democracy, peace and stability is guaranteed for decades to come. That is what is at stake today. It's not about one country or another. It's about stability, security, democracy. And indeed, it matters what happens to Ukraine. If we give up our support for Ukraine, the political support, or the financial support, then we lose and we give up on our fundamental principles. And that is why the government I have the pleasure to lead will support Ukraine. The government that I am leading will support further integration of the European Union and will support a reasonable package for the midterm review of the financial framework. I will support all the proposals of the European Commission, which has the right know-how to analyze the situation on the ground. I think all those countries, independent of their degree of development vis-à-vis the European achievements, need to be part of the European family for the reason I just explained. Das macht mich sehr traurig, wenn das dann so ist. Ich werde natürlich heute zum ersten Mal den ungarischen Premierminister bei diesem Europäischen Rat zuhören. Ich glaube, zur europäischen Geschichte und zum europäischen Umgang gehört auch, dass man jemandem zuhört. Aber es muss so sein, dass wenn es eine fast Einstimmigkeit gibt, um vorwärts zu kommen, dass dann jeder auch kompromissbereit sein muss. Und das erwarte ich auch, vor allem bei solch einem fundamentalen Thema wie dem Beitritt und den Beitrittsgesprächen für die Ukraine, aber auch für die anderen Staaten aus der Region. Und wenn man sieht, was also auf dem Spiel steht, dass jeder sich da kompromissbereit gibt. Das kann ich zu diesem Zeitpunkt nicht beurteilen, weil ich ja seine Argumente nur aus den Medien kenne. Ich möchte also heute Morgen zuhören. Ich hoffe aber, dass jedes Land, auch Ungarn und andere Länder, denen wir damals 2004 geholfen haben, in die Europäische Union beizutreten, um auch dort die Demokratie, die Stabilität für Jahrzehnte zu stärken, dass diese Länder und insbesondere auch Herr Orban sich daran erinnert, wenn es hier darum geht, der Ukraine, Georgien, Moldawien und zum Teil auch Bosnien-Herzegowina in dieser Philosophie auch jetzt zu unterstützen, in einem kruzialen Moment dieses schrecklichen Konflikts in der Ukraine. Ich hoffe noch immer, dass es klappt. Ich gehe mit Optimismus in diesen Rat hinein. Vielen Dank. Ich glaube, wir sollten jetzt alles daran setzen, heute zu schauen, dass wir zu einem guten Ergebnis kommen. Vielen Dank. Vielen Dank.
Viable down the line forever, but at the same time, are we as Ireland willing to give up our veto on issues that it might suit us on? So we need to see that from both sides of it. I believe we need reform of the way the European Union works, but we also need to be understanding of the fact that if we move away from unanimity to majority voting, we will be on the losing side of some votes. And are we yet comfortable with that? And we just need to be aware of that paradigm. So, thank you. So do you mean the US or the EU?
The US, yes, if they fail to approve.
Well, look, I think the most important thing that we need to decide here today and this weekend is that long-term financial support for Ukraine will be coming from the European Union. I don't think it's for us to tell the Americans to support Ukraine unless we as Europeans are willing to support Ukraine. Ukraine's a European country, and I think that really has to be the outcome of this meeting, because if you think about it, the US, the EU, these are the two towers of freedom and democracy in the world. If we can't support Ukraine throughout 2024, Putin will win. And I can't even begin to contemplate the consequences for the world, for all of us, if that were to happen. So this is a really important meeting and a really big decision to be made.
The agenda, but there's Netanyahu said yesterday, it doesn't matter about international pressure. So what we can do now?
Well, I believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is wrong in that assessment. What matters is the opinion of the international community, the view of the United States, and I'm encouraged by some of the remarks by President Biden in recent weeks, but also public opinion in Israel, which is not so supportive of Prime Minister Netanyahu at the moment. So certainly what I'll be pushing for very strongly here is language from the European Union that condemns terrorism and the actions of Hamas unequivocally, calls for a ceasefire so that we can relieve the enormous suffering of the Palestinian people, but also puts Europe very firmly behind a two-state solution. Things have changed. There has to be a major peace initiative leading to a two-state solution, and Europe needs to be behind that and put pressure and also encouragement on Israel and Palestine to make that happen.
Apart from encouragement, what will Europe do?
Well, I think there are a number of things we can do. We can continue to increase our humanitarian support for Palestine, and we are doing that. That's been more than trebled. Very important that money flows. Another thing we can do, and Ireland is among the countries saying this should happen, is to begin to put travel bans and sanctions on not just on the funders of Hamas, but also on Israeli settlers involved in violence against Palestinians in the West Bank. Over 250 Palestinians killed in the West Bank in the last 2 months, not an area controlled by Gaza, and that action is being perpetrated by violent Israeli settlers who are trying to push Palestinians off their land. That's one of the things we can do, and also try to have a more united voice at a UN level as well. So I have to go, but thank you.
belangrijk is het dat Oekraïne straks uitzicht krijgt op die toetreding en op die 50 miljard?
Ja, is nogal cruciaal eerlijk gezegd. Hè. Oekraïne voert ook onze strijd. Het is de strijd voor onze waarden, ook voor onze veiligheid als Nederlanders, als Europeanen. Dat Poetin niet zijn zin krijgt, dat agressie niet wordt beloond. Het gaat moeizaam met de Verenigde Staten in de Senaat op dit moment. We hopen natuurlijk dat het goed komt. Dat lijkt meer een binnenlands politiek probleem dan iets anti-Oekraïne. Maar de conclusie is wel tot nu toe geen geld voor Oekraïne, dus dit moet er echt uitkomen.
Hoe schat u wat dat betreft de flexibiliteit van Viktor Orbán in?
Gaan we naar kijken. Ik heb contact met hem gehad. Ik ken hem goed, dus we gaan dat allemaal bezien.
Maar goed, tot nu toe is het 2 keer nee.
Ja, dat is de ingangspositie. En we gaan zien wat er gebeurt vandaag en morgen.
Maar wat kan u Orbán bieden?
Wat gaat de rest mij bieden? En wat gaan we elkaar bieden? Het is niet zo dat we hier zitten om Orbán iets te bieden.
Nee, maar het beeld is toch steeds 26 landen, die willen wel die kant op en Orbán niet.
Ja, dat is dan misschien het beeld, maar ik heb altijd wat moeite met zo'n Europese Raad waarbij één persoon denkt dat we alles kunnen bieden. We moeten met z'n allen eruit komen. Daar gaan we hard aan werken.
Maar hij kan het wel eens niet tegenhouden natuurlijk.
Dat heeft natuurlijk ook grote schade voor Hongarije, dus ik moet nog zien dat het zover komt.
Maar goed, afgelopen dagen kwam het beeld dat het misschien wel om geld zou gaan. Is dat een optie?
Nou, dat weet ik allemaal niet. Wij kunnen niet besluiten over geld waar de Raad over gaat, want er liggen helemaal geen voorstellen voor. En bovendien moeten er dan nog allerlei stappen voor Hongarije gezet worden. De commissie kan over een stukje van het geld zelf beslissen. Ik begrijp heel goed hun besluit, omdat Orbán een aantal dingen heeft gedaan die nodig waren voor dat commissiedeel. En dat moest ook voor vrijdag, begrijp ik, anders was het te laat. Dus dat valt in de tijd samen. Dat roept natuurlijk allerlei vragen op, maar ik snap het wel.
Maar goed, het beeld was ook, er ligt nog veel meer miljarden hier vast. Die wil ik ook hebben.
Goed, daar gaat deze vergadering niet over, dus dat gaat deze 2 dagen niet lukken dan.
Geen geld, hoe dan ook, zegt u.
Nee, puur procedureel kan dat niet. Er liggen helemaal geen voorstellen. Dan moeten we eerst weten hoe ver Hongarije is op allerlei punten om als raad besluit te kunnen nemen over het geld waar de raad over gaat. Maar ik wil nog een keer terug. Het is niet een kwestie van wat kunnen we iemand bieden. Wat kunnen wij gezamenlijk doen om eruit te komen in het belang van een veilig Europa.
Die 50 miljard zou u ook eventueel kunnen geven buiten Orbán om. Goeie optie vindt u?
Vind ik geen goede optie. Kijk, als het allemaal vastloopt moet je naar alle opties kijken. Maar ik vind dat de grote voorkeur heeft om met z'n 27 uit te komen.
Want?
Dat is gewoon beter. Ook omdat je wilt voorkomen dat Europa dadelijk op allerlei onderwerpen met groepjes besluiten gaat nemen. Maar luister, ik sluit allemaal niks uit. Ik heb die luxe niet.
En wat het lidmaatschap betreft zou je nog kunnen zeggen, ach, een beetje vertraging. Het is natuurlijk niet definitief van de baan als er nu een nee is.
En dat is natuurlijk het ingewikkelde. Dat gaat ook om symboliek. En wat je vandaag wilt doen is echt zeggen tegen de Oekraïners, jullie hebben nu heel veel gedaan. Midden in de oorlog hebben jullie enorm veel inspanningen geleverd om die volgende stap te zetten op weg naar toetreding. Die toetreding zelf is nog vele jaren ver weg. Waar het hier om gaat is een volgende stap. En dat is ook een symbolisch belangrijke stap. Die kun je een paar maanden uitstellen. Maar omdat die strijd er nu gevoerd wordt en 90% van de Oekraïne dit zo graag wil, zou het echt slecht nieuws zijn voor Oekraïne.
Gaat het moeilijk worden, denk je?
Het zal geen makkelijke top zijn, nee.
Er is al gesproken met Orbán door diverse mensen de afgelopen dagen. Heeft dat nog iets opgeleverd?
Dat weet ik niet precies, want ik heb ook niet alle gesprekken gevolgd. Ik heb zelf ook met hem gesproken. We gaan het zien.
Hoe ging dat gesprek bij u?
Altijd heel plezierig, we mogen elkaar graag, maar we zijn het daarmee nog niet onmiddellijk eens.
Maar mag u elkaar graag genoeg om ervoor te zorgen dat u er ook uit gaat komen, heer?
In ieder geval is die band goed genoeg om met elkaar in gesprek te zijn deze dagen en we moeten kijken of dat voldoende oplevert.
Heeft u hem ook streng toegesproken?
Je moet altijd een beetje kijken bij verschillende collega's welke toon het beste werkt.
En welke toon werkt het beste bij Orbán?
En dat hou ik voor mezelf.
Dan even over de Nederlandse politiek.
Ja.
Wist u dat uw collega Jesselkus gisteren die motie zou indienen over de spreidingswet?
Ja, over interne communicatie in de partij zeg ik nooit iets.
Was u verrast?
Ik zeg nooit zo over interne communicatie, maar ik heb gisteren een brief gestuurd aan de Kamer. Kijk, de motie vraagt aan kabinet en Eerste Kamer iets. En het enige wat ik aan de Kamer heb geschreven is dat het kabinet nu niet aan zet is. Als een wet eenmaal is ingediend bij de Eerste Kamer, dan bepaalt de Eerste Kamer de regie.
Maar dat werd gisteren ook tegen haar gezegd in de Kamer. Mensen zeiden van dit is heel raar, staatsrechtelijk gezien. Toch ging ze door.
Het is staatsrechtelijk gezien niet raar, alleen ik heb erop gewezen dat het kabinet niet aan zet is.
Is het staatsrechtelijk niet raar, vindt u?
Nee, de Kamer mag voor alles aan het kabinet vragen en dan moet het kabinet reageren.
Maar ze vroegen ook aan de Eerste Kamer dingen en dat is toch de chambre de réflexion?
Ja, daar ga ik nu allemaal niet over. Dat is aan de Kamers onderling. Dat is een interinstitutioneel vraagstuk. Daar staat het kabinet buiten. Maar voor zover het kabinet iets werd gevraagd, heb ik erop gewezen dat het kabinet niet de regie voert. Nu als een wet eenmaal is aangenomen door de Tweede Kamer, de Tweede Kamer die wet heeft doorgestuurd naar de Eerste Kamer, dan wordt de regie gevoerd door de Eerste Kamer.
Kan zij in het demissionaire kabinet blijven met deze houding?
Zeker, en dat roept de vraag op die ik ook gisteren in het debat terug zag komen in de verslaglegging. Kan een minister ook in de Kamer zitten en afwijkende standpunten nemen? Ja, dat kan als zo'n minister fractievoorzitter is bijvoorbeeld. Dat is onvermijdelijk. Ik heb het zelf 4 keer gedaan. Als fractievoorzitter in de Kamer gezeten terwijl ik ook lid van het kabinet was. Ik was zelfs premier. Dan is het soms onvermijdelijk dat er wat meer ruimte is om afwijkende meningen te hebben.
Het kan, maar is het ook wenselijk?
Ja, dat is onvermijdelijk, omdat je anders geen kabinet kunt formeren.
Maar zij rijdt ook bijvoorbeeld collega staatssecretaris Van den Burg in de wielen.
Nee hoor, die is stevig genoeg om dat niet te laten gebeuren. En...
Ja, maar echt prettig is het toch niet?
Nou, dat weet ik allemaal niet. We zijn allemaal niet van marsepein.
Nou, hij wil die spreidingswet graag hebben, want hij heeft een probleem in Ter Apel.
Ja, maar u dacht dat er een mentaal probleem was. En ik ken Erik goed genoeg om te weten dat dat niet zo is. Kijk, je kunt geen kabinet formeren als je in het Nederlandse systeem zegt een fractievoorzitter kan ook in het kabinet zitten. Dat is gewoon een keuze die we gemaakt hebben ooit. Ik heb het zelf ook een groot deel inmiddels van mijn...
Ja, maar niet elke fractievoorzitter dient dan zo'n motie in.
Nou, ik heb zelf als fractievoorzitter ook allerlei dingen gezegd in kamerdebatten bij formaties die afweken van het regeringsbeleid.
Dus dit is volstrekt logisch?
Dat is onvermijdelijk in een formatie.
Ja, wat betekent dit voor het demissionaire kabinet? Kan dat intact blijven?
Ja hoor, dat betekent niks voor het kabinet.
Niks aan het handje?
Niets aan het handje, nee.
Toch even meneer, hoe geloofwaardig is het dat een staatssecretaris een wet moet verdedigen en dat die staatssecretaris dan ook weer onderdeel uitmaakt van een fractie in de Tweede Kamer die wet niet ziet?
Ja, dat is het Nederlandse politieke systeem waar we voor gekozen hebben, hè, waarbij je na verkiezingen niet altijd een kabinet krijgt van dezelfde samenstelling. Er komt nu waarschijnlijk een kabinet met een andere samenstelling. Dat betekent dat een minister van mijn partij, die ook fractievoorzitter is, uiteraard daarover onderhandelt. Ze ook posities moet verdedigen in kamerdebatten. Ja, dan is het onvermijdelijk dat er licht komt te zitten tussen de positie van zo'n fractievoorzitter en het kabinet. Dat kan niet anders.
Maar dit doet ook iets met de geloofwaardigheid. Het kabinet wil nog steeds graag die meerderheid ook in de Eerste Kamer.
Nou, dat denk ik niet, want dat is nou eenmaal ons staatsbestel. Dan moet het staatsbestel veranderen. Dan moet je afspreken dat ofwel het ene uiterste, het Engelse systeem, de ministers zijn allemaal ook lid van de Kamer. Dat is het ene uiterste, het monisme. Wij hebben dualisme. Maar we hebben er bij het dualisme voor gekozen dat na verkiezingen leden van het kabinet ook lid van de Kamer kunnen zijn. En dan gebeurt dit.
Nog even over de agenda van vandaag. Het is niet helemaal duidelijk hoe jullie precies kijkt naar de kandidaat-lidmaatschap of kandidaat-lidstaat van Georgië. Is dat iets?
Wij steunen de hele commissie, ook op dat punt. Dus wij steunen alles. En mijn enige zorg is dat nogal een aantal collega's op Bosnië verder willen gaan dan de commissie voorstelt. Maar wij steunen in ieder geval de commissie op alle voorstellen. Tuurlijk. Nee hoor. Dat heb ik niet gezegd. Ik zei, als je waar 26 landen één kant op willen en een ander land een andere kant op wil, dat kan natuurlijk altijd. Ik zeg ook niet dat dit per definitie dus goed afloopt, dat weet ik niet. Daar werken we hard aan om dat voor elkaar te krijgen. Ik heb er ook wel vertrouwen in, maar we gaan het zien. Maar het is nooit zonder kosten. Natuurlijk, als een land zo'n positie neemt, afwijkt van de rest.
Wat voor kosten moet je dan aan denken?
Ja, dat is niet 1 op 1 te berekenen, maar het heeft natuurlijk altijd effecten.
Eindigt deze top sowieso met geld voor Oekraïne? Dus als het niet lukt met Orbán dan zonder Orbán?
Ja, dat zei ik net ook. Ik vind dat we er alles aan moeten doen om met z'n 26 uit te komen. En ik sluit niet uit dat je, als dat niet lukt, ook andere dingen moet proberen. Maar het heeft een grote voorkeur om dat echt met z'n 27 te doen. Omdat je anders ook weer, ja, weet je, dan doe je iets wat de volgende keer misschien ook weer kan en dan wordt het rommelig.
Oekraïne hoeft niet bang te zijn dat het na deze dagen met lege handen eindigt.
Nou ja, dat moeten we echt zien. Er is nog geen uitkomst. We gaan er hard aan werken.
Wat vond u van?
On Ukraine, I think it's important that we give a strong message to our Ukrainian friends. First on military and financial support, and then on enlargement. Our European unity has been keen in maintaining our security. If we create space by not showing unity, it's going to be abused by those who put the European continent in danger, and we have to be extremely clear on support, and that is the main discussion that we should have today. On the conflict in Israel-Palestina, really clear message. Stop the unnecessary killing of civilians. A ceasefire is necessary because that is the best way to make sure that there is humanitarian access and that hostages can be liberated.
Mr. Prime Minister, do you support candidacy for Georgia?
One at a time. Well, the proposal of the European Commission to me is something which is acceptable. which takes into account the very big package of reforms that have been made in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, and so we support the analysis of the Commission. Well, you know, we've had difficult moments, and we've had difficult moments over the past 2 years with difficult discussions. Keeping that unity really is crucial, and I do not want to get into some type of bazaar logic where we should be trading one thing with another. This is about the security for Ukraine, providing them with military and financial support, and this is the discussion. Other discussions, for example, related to rule of law in Hungary, have nothing to do with the discussion which we have today. I think the approach that the Commission has taken and doing a comprehensive proposal is the right way of going forward. So yeah, let's keep it together in a package. Well, you know, people say this is a difficult council. Well, this is the reason why we meet. We meet because we have difficult topics to tackle. So we've had other difficult councils. Yes, you have to do everything to keep the unity, and I'm convinced that it is possible if there is clear spirits and goodwill at the table. Well, because becoming part of the European Union demands a high degree of reforms, and really Ukraine and other countries have done a tremendous effort over the past months, and really have to applaud all the work that has been done. But not only they need to do their homework, we need to do our homework as well. For the moment, the European Union is not ready for a large enlargement, so we have to do our work ourselves. This takes some time. This is not a negative message. That is why the process needs to be started, but we need to do our homework as well. Last question. Sorry, can you repeat? Well, the message of unity was one which Russia did not expect. And that has always been the strategy to try to disunite the European Union, and we've been very good at keeping all together. And this is a message that secures our population. It's to say we will, all 27, be there protecting one another. Creating space there and not showing unity is a message which could be interpreted as something that hints that we would not be protecting each other at difficult moments. So showing that unity really is a crucial one, and not showing it is something which could have an impact on the security of the European continent. That's a good question, and that's why we need to talk at the table and not in interviews and open letters and so on. I think there's been way too many of these in the past weeks. It's good that we finally meet, and let's listen to each other and understand what the motives are. So it's good that we finally meet. Thank you.
On you, but if you have questions. All right. Oh. We'll see. I was on the phone this weekend, and we continue our conversation. So let's see how far we can get. I think it is crucial that today we have a positive decision on next steps for Ukraine in the accession talks. It will take, anyway, many years before accession will take place, but this is about the next step. Ukraine has worked extremely hard to make that next step happen during a war they are also fighting for us. It is also about our values, about our collective safety. So that's one. And also on the money, I think it's crucial that we decide on this 50 billion package, particularly now that in the US, I think more internal politics than that it is about Ukraine, that the decision has been postponed. So it's the more crucial that we get to a positive decision on both. What I have to see is what he is doing, and when it comes to the money the Council is deciding on, so this is the next gen EU/RRF money, there's no decision on the table, and we have to see the results when that decision comes to the table. That's not for this European Council. The Commission on the 10 billion has ruled on the 10 billion, as I understand, that Viktor Orban put in place certain measures necessary for that 10 billion to be freed up. They had to make the decision by Friday. I know eyebrows have been raised because of the coincidence in timing, but I think it was unavoidable because it had to be decided before Friday. The message to Putin has to be that we have reached a decision and that we are united on Ukraine, money-wise, but also in acknowledging and being strict and fair, and in this case fair because they have done so much on Ukraine's European ambitions. We support basically every proposal the Commission has made in terms of the enlargement package for this European Council, including on Georgia. I will work very hard, and my colleagues will also work very hard to get to consensus, both on enlargement, the next steps, but also on the 50 billion, because both are crucial. Well, so far we've always been able to come to unanimous decisions, including Viktor Orban, and I'm absolutely hopeful and will work very hard with my colleagues. In Germany you would say zuversichtlich that we can get there. Okay, one last question, I have to go. The Benelux meeting will start any moment, and I expect all of you to be there to report about it. Again. Could you please start again? We are coordinating very closely with the US and our partners in the Middle East, and in Iraq and in the rest of the Middle East to make sure that our troops are safe. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good morning. I'm sure I'm not the first one to tell you that this is a historic summit that we're just about to start. For us, very clear positions. First of all, we have seen unprecedented unity during the pandemic, and then since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We have seen it over the last few hours of the day that we have finally reached an agreement on the electricity market reform. If that could show us something, that deals are always possible. So on enlargement, very clear. This is a win-win situation. Ukraine should be given the moral, political, financial support that it deserves and we all need for our own security. Same with Moldova, same with Georgia and Bosnia-Herzegovina. And we also would like, and I say this in every European Council, a decision on Schengen for Romania and Bulgaria. I can't believe that we are here December 2023 and we are still talking about accession for Romanian and Bulgarian citizens to the Schengen area. I will also discuss the MFF. Funds are finite. We need to be realistic, and therefore I understand the gap is not very big, and I hope that we can really find a solution. Unity is key. Everybody has different positions, of course. Everybody would need a little bit of something more for something else, but this is why we are around the table, in order to find those common ground that we can deliver with this last summit of the year. We also need to talk about our competitiveness. We don't talk enough. We will need to see clear conclusions on the Middle East. We also need to discuss migration. So my final appeal will also be for the last push over the next few days on the migration pact. Still a lot of way to go, but at the end of the day, I think that we are closer than we have been in a decade to breaking a deadlock. We cannot go to the European elections in June without an agreement on migration. And I'm, let's say, cautiously optimistic that we will manage by the end of the Spanish presidency that has worked very hard on this. Thank you. I would like to think 99%, at least over 90 for sure. There is a question on the border protection issue. We're also needing, as always, to have the balance where the Parliament will seek for an agreement on solidarity, where asylum is a key part, where external border protection. We're seeing new issues with the instrumentalization of migrants, as we saw earlier in the Baltic countries through Belarus and with Poland, now with Finland. So this is a new element where the Parliament and the Council are coming closer together. I am convinced, and I'm hoping that we can wrap up as much as possible this weekend and on Monday on all the remaining packages.
I think the most sticking point on migration.
Well, on this, so we have 5 open legislative files. There is a thread amongst all of them, and they all depend on each other. So if you talk about the asylum and migration regulation, it is about movement and the possibility of making sure that the rules apply to every country. If you're talking about crisis, what do we mean by a sudden influx at the border? If you are talking about instrumentalization of migrants, where does that go? Where do we exercise a border protection procedure? These are all issues that are crucial for us to have that balance that is fair with those who are in need of protection, that is fair with those who are not, that our returns policy needs to be stronger, more effective, and also that is very harsh on the smugglers and traffickers that seek to prey on the most vulnerable, mostly women and children on this planet. One more question here.
On this summit today, are you afraid that the Council is trading the rule of law in Hungary against dropping the vetoes of Ukraine?
So on this, the position of the Parliament is clear. Rule of law for us is crucial. What we would want to see today is a united position, a unanimous position on sending the strongest of political signals to Ukraine that is fighting our war, for Ukraine to be able to take on that next step. We are not talking about immediate membership, but we are talking about the next step, as the Ukrainians very much deserve. All positions need to come closer together. Parliament's position on the rule of law does not change. We are looking forward for an agreement today. Thank you very much.
Well, the European Union Council today has a lot of issues related with foreign and security policy. I know that there is the enlargement question, the financial question, but also the war in Ukraine and the situation in Palestine and Gaza. I think that we have to stick supporting Ukraine as much as we can from the enlargement perspective, from the military support, from the financial support. I will debrief the leaders about the work we have been doing on security commitments with Ukraine, and I will continue asking them to understand, I'm sure they understand, that it is an existential issue for Europe, that our support to Ukraine has to be continuing and increase, because it's not a war against Ukraine, it's also for our security. I know the enlargement will take an important part of the discussion. Enlargement is the most important foreign policy. It's the stronger stability capacity that we have, not only with Ukraine, but also with other candidates in the Balkans and in the Caucasus. So it's very much important to take the right decisions, and I hope I will get guidance in order to continue developing the European Peace Facility military support. Member States has been discussing. We went to Kiev. We were with the Ukrainians. Now it's time to get political guidance from the European Union Council leaders. We will discuss also about the situation in Gaza. We'll have to take into account the vote in the United Nations General Assembly. The situation requires certainly a humanitarian stop in the fight in order to free the hostages and avoid a humanitarian catastrophe. And we have to start thinking about how do we deal with the problem in a political approach. The Arab countries have already said that they will not participate in rebuilding Gaza unless there is a strong commitment from the international community to build a two-state solution. And we have to focus on that. We have to focus on a political solution to the problem once and for all. And this is something that I'm sure the leaders will discuss. I can only ask a question at a time. Well, then, you know what is in the agenda today. You know, certainly they will be discussing about the enlargement, and in particular in the case of Ukraine. I think Ukraine has done an incredible effort to fulfill the conditions. We at the Commission, we presented a positive assessment, and we will continue defending a positive assessment for the opening of negotiations with Ukraine. Well, I don't know which is going to be the result of the discussion, because as you know, the member states in the United Nations, they voted in different approaches. Yes, no, and abstention. I'm supposed to represent a common position, but there is not a common position. There are different approaches, but there are more member states today supporting the ceasefire than in the previous votes. This is a fact. More and more people are leaning to the side of asking for a ceasefire, but the leaders will have to discuss. Thank you.
Support for Ukraine.
First of all, it is extremely important that we continue our support to Ukraine. Of course, first of all, militarily. It's a tough winter, and we need, on a short-term perspective, to ensure Ukraine that they will get all the help that they need. At the same time, we have to prepare for a long-term perspective, and that is why, for example, the Danish government and the Danish Parliament today will decide for almost 1 billion euros more directed to Ukraine. We have decided to donate our F-16s, or at least a lot of them, to ensure on a long-term perspective that Ukraine gets the help that they need. And financially, it is important to have a decision in the following days to ensure that we stick to our plan in Europe, that we will be with Ukraine as long as it takes. And if we have to do that. And there is only one way forward for Europe, and that is to help Ukraine and to stick with our plan. Thank you.
morning. Today we have to make decisions about Ukraine, but those decisions are not just about Ukraine, those are decisions also about Europe, because if we cannot make decisions about Ukraine, so it means we cannot fulfill our commitments Europe has given before. So it means, first, we have to support Ukraine militarily, financially and politically. We have to find a solution for military support from EPF, as well as we have to decide on 50 billion support for Ukraine. And I believe Europe is much stronger when we can decide on these issues, because we cannot rely on something happening if we cannot support Ukraine. That's why the first and probably the utmost important decision is to start the negotiations about enlargement and to start negotiations with Ukraine and Moldova, because they have fulfilled all the requirements. The Commission has found it on merits based that those reforms we have asked for Ukraine and Moldova to fulfill are fulfilled. That's why Europe has to proceed with their own decisions. And I believe 26 countries can agree, and we are not looking back, we will go forward. I had the meetings today with some of Nordic countries, and I have a feeling we really will go forward, but not backwards. I believe we will go forward. We cannot rely if someone is endangering Europe's future. We have to go forward and we have to find a solution for that situation. Maybe there is a moment we have to negotiate, not anymore so much about Ukraine, but about someone else who is not going forward. Thank you.
Einen schönen guten Morgen. Wir kommen hier zusammen zu einem wichtigen Europäischen Rat, bei dem wir über zentrale Fragen uns besprechen werden. Ein großes Thema ist natürlich die Erweiterung der Europäischen Union um mehrere Länder, die sich aktiv darum bemühen, dass das für sie möglich ist, unter anderem die Ukraine. Und wie ich schon bei vieler Gelegenheit sehr betont habe, es ist uns wichtig, dass wir jetzt die Weichen stellen, die den Beitrittsprozess voranbringen, hier in Europa, und dass das auch eine Entscheidung ist, die von allen Mitgliedsländern getragen wird. Insofern werden wir uns intensiv darüber unterhalten. Aber das ist eben schon etwas Besonderes, dass wir es voranbringen, dass die Staaten des westlichen Balkans nach nun fast 20 Jahren mal schneller es schaffen, Mitglied der Europäischen Union zu werden, dass wir es schaffen, dass Moldau und die Ukraine diesen Beitrittsprozess weitergehen können. Und das gilt auch für Georgien im Hinblick auf die Vorschläge der Kommission. Ich habe es im Deutschen Bundestag gesagt, Deutschland unterstützt die Vorschläge der Kommission im Hinblick auf die Ukraine sehr. Und wir werden das jetzt auch aktiv versuchen, hier ein gutes europäisches Verständnis für das gemeinsame Handeln zu erarbeiten. Das zweite große Thema, das uns hier bewegt, ist natürlich der Haushalt. Da kenne ich mit aus, und das ist ein sehr zentrales Thema. Wir haben jetzt in Deutschland sehr, sehr viele Stunden darüber gesprochen, wie wir das Budget für 2024 und die folgenden Jahre entwickeln wollen. Genau der Finanzplanungszeitraum, der jetzt auch hier bei der Zwischenbetrachtung des europäischen Finanzrahmens ansteht und zur Diskussion steht. Klar ist, dass in vielen Ländern das gemacht wird, was auch in Deutschland passiert ist, nämlich dass Reduzierung von Ausgabepositionen vorgenommen worden sind. Deshalb wird es auch hier in Europa nicht darum gehen, sehr große zusätzliche Ausgaben zu beschließen. Eine Sache ist allerdings wichtig, dass es uns gelingt, die Finanzfazilität für die Ukraine zu ermöglichen und damit die Grundlage dafür zu schaffen, dass die Ukraine den Widerstand fortsetzen kann gegen die russische Aggression. Die ist ja unverändert im Gange. Und deshalb ist es auch wichtig, dass hier ein klares Zeichen der Unterstützung gesetzt wird, ein Zeichen, das sich richtet an die mutigen Bürgerinnen und Bürger der Ukraine, die ihr Land verteidigen, aber ein Zeichen, das sich auch richtet an den russischen Präsidenten, der wissen muss, dass er nicht darauf rechnen kann, dass die Europäische Union und ihre Mitgliedstaaten nachlassen bei der Unterstützung der Ukraine. Das, glaube ich, ist ein ganz wichtiges Zeichen von diesem Gipfel, dass wir das hinbekommen. Wir werden dann noch viele andere Fragen verhandeln, die uns bewegen. Ein Thema will ich gerne hier noch einmal unterstreichen. Das ist die Reform des Umgangs mit irregulärer Migration. Wir haben uns alle verständigt, das gemeinsame solidarische europäische Asylsystem voranzubringen. Und das soll jetzt hier auch gelingen. Deshalb bin ich sicher, auch das wird unsere Debatten mit prägen.
Herr Bundeskanzler, Orban könnte ein Deal aussehen. Und haben Sie das Gefühl, dass er die EU erpresst?
Ich glaube, es ist ganz wichtig, dass jetzt alle miteinander sprechen und dass sie das mit der guten Absicht, sich zu einigen tun. I'm absolutely sure that this is a necessary debate here in Europe. We must make progress in this accession processes we have. It is a decision of the European Union that we are ready for enlargement, discussing with the Western Balkan states, discussing with Moldova, Ukraine and Georgia. And especially in the case of Ukraine, we think it is a necessary sign that we support the activities of the Ukrainians to meet all the measures that we ask them to meet. Es geht jetzt darum, dass man sich miteinander bespricht und dazu gehört es sich auch nicht, dann aus Frühstücken zu berichten.
Will Germany support to grant the candidate status to Georgia?
I already said that we support the proposal of the Commission. Thank you.
then you have to hold the stick, and one time when it was really small, I almost let it fall because it was so heavy.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's very good. I know where you got
okay.
it. Yeah, I can.
Ouais. Macron, on l'a pas vu, lui. Hein. Ouais. Ok, donc on coupe là. Tout le monde est en train de défoncer. Ok. Oui, le son était nickel aujourd'hui. Ouais, c'est super bien positionné. Ok. Deux extérieurs. Ouais. Un café et tout ça. Alright, ok. Un peu long alors.
Willst du die Karte mitnehmen zum Einlesen? Oder schneiden wir es eben mit?
Hello? Yeah, hello, it's from Brussels. It's one for the summit.